Grazie Nicola Rinaldi, e allora le conclusioni all'ambasciatore Sachs.
So first of all, thank you so much. It's a big honor. I would like to thank you, Mr. President, and of course thank you, Mr. Della for being here, and Mr. Nicola Rinaldi. I will react to your book even without reading it, since I think that there is plenty to react upon. But you know, I planned to speak from my written paper, and allow me maybe to speak a little bit more freely, and to start with Dr. Hans Sachs, my grandfather. Okay, Dr. Hans Sachs was a physician in Berlin in the beginning of the 20th century, and in 1914 he was called to join the army, the German army, and to treat the German soldiers somewhere on the border, on the ditches on the border between France and Germany. After spending almost 4 years in the deep mud of this horrible war, he was honored to get the highest decoration of the German institutions, the Iron Cross. Yeah. For him, it was obvious that he needs to go to join the army as an officer and to treat the German soldiers as a German, not as a Jew, as a German. And the question that I want to raise here, that what caused the same Hans to pack his stuff and less than 15 years later to leave Berlin and to move to this to the middle of nowhere, not too far from Caesarea of today, to the place that I was born and raised in the state of Israel. And I think that this is a complicated question that I think that I don't have the capacity to give a positive reply on that, but definitely he was forced to do that not because he was acting against the German regime, because he was not German, because he did not believe in the German system, simply because a cynical movement or a radical movement used the Jewish people, even I can say, you know, the relatively small population of the Jewish people, because you know that before the Second World War, there were less than 500,000 Jewish people in Germany. Percentage-wise, it's nothing. It's nothing, and they were deeply incorporated within the German community. So this is a way, you know, a deep lesson that we need to bear in mind to understand how fragile and sensitive is our freedom and our democracies. This is I think a very basic lesson that we need to take. The second issue that I want to touch upon is the fact that very soon, in the next couple of years, there will be no more survivors that will be able to tell the story. I think that in August, last August, in the age of 95, Mr. Settimio Piatelli, Ricardo, you probably can correct me if I'm not pronouncing the name right, one of the last Jewish survivors, passed away here in Rome, leaving us in a way in a situation that of course needs to force us to think again how we can maintain the remembrance for the sake of the next generation and the democracy, of course. I want to say thank you, first of all, for the Italian people and for the Italian institutions, because it's not been taken for granted that for the past few years, Italy, both the official Italy and also the the people of Italy are spending time, efforts, and many resources to remember the Holocaust. We're talking about school, universities, exhibitions that are being taking place, conferences, activities like these ones, delegations that goes to visit Auschwitz and other camps. This is not being taken for granted. And allow me to tell you, Mr. Della Vedova, that in other places around Europe, it's not always so easy. It's not easy here, but in other places, the struggle is even challenging. I would say. In 1988, I was almost 17 years old, and I took a trip to Poland in one of the first delegations that the Ministry of Education arranged by then. You can imagine in 1988, it's still communistic state, and we went for 10 days to visit Poland and to go through the passes of this horrible war. By that time, of course, there were still many people that we could meet. There were still many things that were, on the ground that could be a very clear evidence. But I can tell you that this trip was for me one of the most influential event of my adult life, and I'm talking about me as a person, me as an Israeli, me as a Jew. Of course, it was a trip that shook my mind and understanding, and I can tell you that as a father for 3 kids nowadays, kids that were born into a vivid society, an open society, a stable society, it's not taken for granted, even for them, to understand the complexity and the challenges that this situation or this terrible war brought us. I think that some of you already mentioned that even with all that, and even with all the major movement of remembrance, we still hear occasionally people that are claiming that this Holocaust was not even happening, that this is a Jewish scheme, that this is something that should serve interest of a bigger, I don't know even how to declare it. And this is something that we need, of course, to condemn and to prevent. The easiness now of delivering information through social media, through the internet, makes Holocaust deniers work easier than ever. This is, of course, from one hand. On the other hand, we nowadays have different tools that we need to use together in order to keep this remembrance. I want to say that I was fortunate to join President Mattarella in his visit to Jerusalem a couple of months ago. I think that his words in Yad Vashem were very loud, very clear, and they came from his heart. He spoke not from his paper or from his pre-arranged speech, but almost spontaneously in one of the stops, saying things that for me were deeply important. The state of Israel is my homeland, of course. Rose or was established 3 years after the Second World War was over. But it's very important to understand that it was not established because of the Shoah, but it was established in spite of what happened in Europe. And this is another lesson that we need to bear in mind. The world is very cynical. The world likes to observe some part of the story and to ignore other part of the story, as Nicola just mentioned. And allow me in this respect now to say that I've been visiting Rwanda 4 times till today. Every time, as an official, I'm going to visit the memorial in Kigali, the Memorial Museum in Kigali. Needs to be said that Yad Vashem was part of the, let's say, of the people who helped the people of Kigali to establish this very unique museum. In my first visit there, I was standing in front of these massive graves with the Deputy Minister of Agriculture, whom I was visiting. And the people of Rwanda are very big, very tall. Some of them look a little bit like David from Firenze. They're beautiful people. And I asked him, how can you move on? I mean, it's still around you. It's still live and kicking. It's not something that belongs to the past. And he told me very openly that just in this very specific grave, 4 members of his family are being buried. And the people of Rwanda decided to move on, but to remember. To move on because they have no other choice, and to move on because they need to rebuild their country. But I think that I can agree with many aspects of what you mentioned about your book. But I think that the differences between what happened in the Second World War, in the Holocaust, and what happened in Rwanda are huge. The differences are sometimes even not comparable from my perspective. I think that what we can definitely say that once again we've seen that the world was cynical then and in Rwanda. The world knew, and the world decided not to act, or to act slowly, or to act partially, whatever. But the difference is something that I find it a little bit complicated to put the memorial of the Shoah and the lessons that we need to take from the Second World War and the Holocaust, and of course from the tragedy of the Hutu and the Tutsi. You mentioned the UN and the UN institutions, and unfortunately, once again, I need to agree with you on this issue, of course, that the UN knew and decided not to react. The UN sometimes is choosing not to react because of non-relevant reasons, and all that put a lot of responsibility on us as people who lives in a free world, to remember every day that this freedom is not taken for granted, and that the lesson that was made while paying the price of these 6 million Jews that were murdered in the Second World War needs to be learned very carefully, even after the last survivor will pass away. Needs, of course, to say once again, and this was also part of the lessons that were made also in Rwanda, that the few people that did not follow the crowd are the ones that we need to cherish, are the ones that we need to respect and to learn from them. That when justice is made in such a manner, we cannot stand aside. So thank you again for this, and I think that it's been wonderful.
Grazie a tutti per essere stati alla fine. Io voglio concludere mettendo in imbarazzo un caro amico che però fa la finta di non ascoltarmi, che è il rappresentante del governo italiano. L'idea di questo appuntamento è nato quando Davide mi ha detto Giuseppe, dobbiamo fare qualcosa per questo vergognoso voto all'UNESCO dell'Italia. Noi, Ambasciatore, la Fondazione Einaudi, liberali, laici italiani, con un po', non solo siamo stati contrari, ma abbiamo assistito con un po' di vergogna a quella astensione italiana in quella occasione recente, in cui si sono definiti i luoghi sacri di Gerusalemme appartenenti solo ad una popolazione. Siamo stati contrari, siamo contrari, vogliamo testimoniare oggi in questa occasione ribadire la nostra ferma contrarietà a quel voto del governo italiano. Noi ci auguriamo fortemente che il governo possa ritornare in futuro anche con gesti, atti concreti, non solo simbolici, su quella decisione. Il nostro amico, e chiudiamo, e finiamo qua, il nostro amico senatore Palumbo voleva dire due parole, un minuto solo a conclusione.
Un minuto soltanto, perché quello che ha detto Benedetto della Vedova prima mi ha colpito e vorrei che fosse recepito. Quando una ricorrenza viene ufficializzata, viene in qualche maniera inserita nel panorama istituzionale, rischia di diventare un rito. Questo è il primo rischio che corre. E poi ce n'è un altro, che al riparo da questo rito si creino tanti alibi, per cui è possibile che chi magari la pensa in un modo o in un altro rende un ossequio formale al rito, si procura un alibi e si permette in questo modo comportamenti che contraddicono il rito al riparo dall'alibi. Allora io dico che in questi casi va individuata un elemento di discernimento per comprendere come stanno le cose, una cartina di tornasole, se vogliamo, ed è l'atteggiamento che le persone che si rifugiano dietro quest'alibi assumono nei confronti di Israele. Oggi, non soltanto una volta, non soltanto nel tempo, ma per l'oggi e per il futuro, ricordando che Israele è l'unica democrazia liberale che esiste nel Medio Oriente e che dobbiamo fare in modo di preservarla come un fiore della libertà in una regione del mondo in cui purtroppo la libertà manca. Questo è, io penso, il messaggio che dovremmo cercare di fare passare nell'opinione pubblica, perché quel rito non diventi un vuoto simulacro all'interno del quale si nascondano magari altri obiettivi.
Grazie a tutti.